I have given or told you to memorize the articles, and I've given you resources so that you could know what each section dealt with and what each article dealt with, and on the back every amendment to the Constitution. So we have 7 articles. If you look at the outline of the Constitution first, you won't get lost later. It's a little bit like somebody moves from South Carolina to California, and the first thing the house mover does is open up the big truck and grab a piece of furniture and run it into the house. No, not at all. The first thing he does is get out of the truck and goes into the house and see where the bedrooms are, and proximity to the bathrooms, and proximity to the living room and kitchen, and etc. And then he goes back to the truck and empties the truck in a more orderly fashion. He probably filled the truck in some kind of an orderly fashion too, so that moving into the house now would go much easier, as will studying the Constitution if you pretty much memorize the outline articles and sections. But begin with the articles. There's an article called the legislative branch, and it will make all the laws for you, all the rules for you. Article 2, the executive branch. It will do what the executive branch does, the president, vice president, etc. Notice in both of those, though, that there is a limiting section. The limiting section in Article 1 is Section 8, powers granted to Congress. If a power is not granted to Congress, it belongs with the states and with the people. And Article 2, there is a section, powers and duties of the president. Everything he does should be related to a power and duty listed here. And in Section 2, more powers and duties of the president. Article 3 deals with the Supreme Court, and it is a surprise to many to learn that it too has a list of things that they can do, and that's Section 2. Cases, it's supposed to be, that may be tried in federal courts. And then Article 4 deals with the relationship between the states and the federal government. If you're married in one state and cross or move into another state, are you still married? Article 5 is where we make changes in the Constitution, and it has 2 processes, a proposing and a ratifying process. You'll have to know what those processes are, but that's how we make changes. Article 6 says that this document, as interpreted by the Founding Fathers, is the supreme law of the land. And Article 7, we have to get it ratified. We have to get enough states that say yes to it. Then the rest of the Constitution are changes in the Constitution that went through Article 5, and the first 10 being the Bill of Rights. Now, I'm going to go over to this document over here in a moment, and because we got them as a group, because we're still scared to death of big government, and we're not going to go with that document unless we have some promises that government will never do to us. The 9th and 10th Amendments were a little bit different, and they were not put in order. They were put at the end to kind of consolidate the package. The 9th Amendment, all rights not enumerated remain with the people. In other words, we have not made a list of all the rights that people have. We've made a list of what the government has, and everything else remains with the people, even though we haven't listed it. And the 10th Amendment, powers not delegated remain with the people. So all the power was distributed from the very, very beginning. So if there is a redistribution of power, and if the federal government is growing, it is growing by stealing the power of states and etc. from the 10th Amendment. Because all power over everything was already delegated before with the Bill of Rights, with the 10th Amendment, and with the understanding the Founding Fathers had in the Constitution when they made our list for us, Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 18. That will be our first 10 amendments to the Constitution, and then the changes in the Constitution thereafter from 11 through 27 come in the 225 plus years. I don't know what it is anyway, since. So the document needs to be understood in outline form, so that whenever you want to see whether the President has authority to do something, you go to Article 2. If Congress has authority to do something, you go to Article 1. If you're dealing with the Supreme Court, you go to Article 3. If you want to know whether the federal government has any authority to operate in a certain area, you first go to Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 18, and then you'll go, if not found there, then you'll go to the 27 amendments, and if its power isn't there, fairly specific, then the federal government does not have that authority. It still belongs with the states. The next thing that you want to do in the course then, after you have memorized its outline, so you won't get lost, is the Constitution itself. Not the wording of anybody else, but the Constitution itself. I have provided you a copy of the Constitution. I have circled the areas in the Constitution that deal with the handcuffs of the Constitution. I will be going through each one. The beauty of this document is that it limits the federal government. It is, in fact, handcuffs on the federal government, whereas all constitutions in the history prior to this one that I'm familiar with limited the people rather than the government. This one limits the government. So it is very, very clear with respect to that. Next, I want you to go to the handout. There is a handout. And it takes your Constitution apart. It's an outline of the Constitution, and I want you to pretty much memorize the handout. In it, on the front page, it has 10 sections. It divides the power. Article 1 goes to the legislative branch. Article 2 to the executive branch. Article 3, the judicial branch. Article 4, the states and the federal government. Article 5, the making of amendments. Article 6, the supremacy of the Constitution. And Article 7, ratification. You'll memorize all of the parts, the articles, okay? I don't necessarily make you memorize all the sections, but there are some sections that I do. You will have to know, for testing purposes, Section 8 very well, but we'll go over that. And several questions can come from Section 8. You'll want to know Section 7, because all bills for raising revenue must originate in the House of Representatives. What a precious freedom that is. All your taxing and war powers are in Section 7 and 8. Then you're going to, of course, each one of the other branches have less sections. Now, on the back of this, you will have your amendments to the Constitution, 1 through 27, with the first 10 being the Bill of Rights. Yes, you'll need to memorize all of these. Everything on this sheet.
I wanna be free. I wanna be free. I wanna be free.
You have been listening to Dr. Harold W. Pease. We hope that you have enjoyed our presentation and will visit us again very soon.